Good afternoon. It's Ken Jolliffe with BIS Commodities here in Cedar Rapids, wrapping up the commodity markets for the week of August 11th. Looking at the grain trade to summarize price direction. Corn market had a positive week, one of the first in most of the summer growing season. D's corn closed the week about 13.5 cents higher. Soybean market continued to see a reversal downward, closing down about 32 cents. Wheat market closed about 2 cents higher. Livestock side of things, the hog market and cattle market were both lower on the week by just small amounts. So mainly probably three topics to discuss here this week for the price direction. Looking at the grains, naturally the USDA came out Tuesday with their first crop estimate of this year. The corn crop came out at a touch over 14 billion bushels. The average yield at 167.4. Now this was a record corn crop naturally, but the trade had pretty much dialed in somewhere between a 170 and a 172 type national yield. So we saw the December corn futures post a new contract low prior to the numbers at 11 o'clock Tuesday, only to rebound some later Tuesday and to end the week up, as we said, 13.5 cents higher. When looking at the overall picture of the corn, the carryout number boosted up to a touch over 1.8 billion bushels. It's a stocks to use ratio of like 13.4%. We haven't seen that type of stocks to use ratio since back in the 2009-2010 crop years. So that is something we wanted to concentrate on as we move ahead towards the harvest time frame there. Soybeans came out with a 45.6 yield, a 38.16 crop. Again, a record crop size. The trade had pretty much dialed in that type of number, I think, as we came into Tuesday morning. Thus, once we posted it, the bean market seemed to continue its downward trail, posting a low here this week of 10.38. You also look at the beans compared to the corn, price-wise. The spread ratio was out there at about a 2.94% to the beans. We have pulled that back in, so I think we saw some liquidation within the commodity spreads after the report came out, too. Looking at the bean number, the carryout number of 430 million bushels is, again, a stocks-to-use ratio of 12%. That's a number, too, that we haven't seen back until the crop year of 2004. Summarize the whole crop size situation is, the record size crops. I think we also have to keep in mind as we move forward that not only do we have that potential here yet in this country as record crops, but we're having this across what we call the northern hemisphere, too. Wheat crops are huge in Europe. The wheat crops and corn crops are huge in Russia and Ukraine. That area of the world, that we were concerned about earlier this spring, seems to have rebounded back dramatically here, to produce these type of crops. So it's moving forward. We're going to have to keep the balance of the world supply and demand situation on our table also. The other thing we probably discussed some this week naturally is the weather. Once we posted these type of numbers here this week's off the crop report, we switched over to that. We still seem to have parts of northeast Iowa, southeast Minnesota on the dry side looking for rain. We have seen some systems come into the western part of the Corn Belt. Seems like we've got this invisible line called Interstate 35 through Iowa. Once the rain gets to about that area, it seems to dissipate or go down into the southeast part of the Corn Belt. We're seeing that here against today as we're now talking. So that will be continue to be watched. The 6 to 10 day forecast continues to show some warmth as far as temperatures, but it's also showing normal to above normal rainfall. So we'll have to see where that rain does fall and what we do to close out this particular growing season. I think as we look back to having about 80% of the season behind us, it seems like every time we've come to a situation where we needed something, whether it was warm weather back in the spring, dry weather to plant the crops. We came to that point to where we got, what we were kind of asking for. So, maybe we'll get the rains here over the weekend across parts of Iowa in the first part of next week. The other thing that seems to always want to crop itself up, on us all the time is the geopolitical situation in different parts of the world. We saw that raise its head here today as there were storylines come out of the Ukrainian army and the Russian army having some armed conflict in that border area. When we had that stories come out, the wheat market rallied from about 5 cents lower to about 20 cents higher, based off that. Those geopolitical issues, whether it's in that part of the world, the Middle East part of the world, will probably continue. But I think as we look at the commodity trade as we know it in the agricultural sector, and maybe the commodity trade, in even the energy sector, it seems like we have the fund money that we have seen in the past exit, our areas here with the markets going down both in the grains and then markets going down in the energy thing. And it seems like the fund managers, for now, are going to go try to find someplace else to keep their investment money, flowing. That's not to say that we won't have spurts, of buying and selling by some funds. We saw that this morning at about 7 o'clock. It seemed like we had a spurt come in there of about 4,000 contracts, of beans wanted, and it moved the market about a dime, and the same about the corn. So we will see spurts like that, but in general, as I'm saying, the big money trade seems to be kind of exiting our area, and we're going to fall back into what appears to be more of a maybe a trading range bound type market, as we move closer to the harvest time frame. The livestock sector, as mentioned, we were a little bit lower here on the final numbers for the week. Now, we were down sharply midweek on both the hogs and the cattle. The cash markets for the hogs were lower this week. The cutouts were overall lower this week. Same with the cattle market, holding down into 153, 155 areas, so we're a little bit weaker in the cash there. We did rally everything back here today to finish the week on a positive note. It seems like we just don't really want to give up on the livestock quite yet, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch this particular sector as we move into the first part of next week to see if we can get any follow-through from today's very good closes. So those are things I think we need to watch for going into next week. Naturally, the weather will be important, for the weekend as we try to finish off what appears to be a record corn and bean crop. Hopefully, as we sit here in Cedar Rapids speaking to you right now, that we will see some rain over the weekend to, green us back up and fill out our corn and beans and move forward with that. So with that, have yourself a great weekend. See you next week.